because I really, really want to. I have some things I want to say about this whole Marvel thing with Robert Downey Jr. I firmly believe this is just a desperate move. It's so desperate. And when I saw the announcement and I saw all these people cheering, and I'm looking at Robert Downey Jr., and the one thing came to my mind: I don't see Doctor Doom. I don't see it. When you have established Robert Downey Jr. pretty much as like the real life Iron Man, without all the without all the suits and all that, but when you see Robert Downey Jr., you see Tony Stark. And Tony Stark's lore in Marvel is Hall of Fame worthy if something existed. I mean, Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark is the foundation of the beginning of the MCU. Now you're going to bring back the actor. He's going to be playing Doctor Doom. And it doesn't matter if he's a variant. It doesn't matter if he's playing Victor Von Doom or he's playing Tony Stark from another universe as Doctor Doom, which wouldn't make any sense. I just think it's a bad move. Now, I think this is something that is a short-term gain. The movie's still going to make tons of money. There's still going to be people out there who's going to... This is going to be... I'm telling you right now. This is going to be one of those things where people are going to love this. They're going to love this movie. And 2 years later, they're going to criticize the fact that Robert Downey Jr. played Doctor Doom. This is going to have a grenade effect. Right now, they're pulling the pin. It's been tossed, but it's not going to blow up until after a while. I'm going to be honest why. Let's just be honest. This is the truth. If you take offense to this, then sadly you fall in this category. I just think people are too dumb and blind with excitement right now to realize just how fucking desperate this move is. Like, I'm a big MCU fan. You guys know that. Hell, I got Wolverine tattooed on my arm. Okay? So, I mean, and you guys have seen me gush about the MCU back in the day. But you guys also know that I'm realistic, I'm grounded, and I'm honest. And I don't like this move. I don't like this move. When I see Robert Downey Jr., I see Tony Stark. In no fucking world would I ever see Doctor Doom. This is such a blatant, desperate move to get people's asses back in the seats. And what happened to the creativity at Marvel? You telling me you couldn't find a good actor out there to play Victor Von Doom? You got to go into the Tony vault, into the Robert Downey Jr. vault? You're going to tell me there's not at least a handful of actors out there that could have been a badass Doctor Doom? It's not like you've set this up. This was a pivot. Now look, they had to make a pivot. Obviously, what happened with the actor and him getting in trouble, Jonathan Majors and all that shit, they had to make, because remember, this is supposed to be Avengers Kang Kingdom or some shit like that, or Kingdom of Kang or whatever. Now it's Avengers Doomsday. So you're obviously going to be introducing Doctor Doom in the next 2 years, between now and 2026. Which is fine. I honestly, I think that's a smart pivot. I think Doctor Doom is a much better villain than Kang the Conqueror anyway. Now, I still would have liked to have seen Kang the Conqueror, because what I was hoping to see was them build up from Kang to Doom and then Galactus. But to cast Robert, first of all, you're spending a truckload of money again. All right, you didn't. If you would have gotten, you could have gotten any other good actor to play Doctor Doom, and you probably wouldn't have spent. You would have spent maybe a tenth of what you're spending to get Robert Downey Jr. in here. Then, from an image standpoint, it's a tarnish. You might as well have just brought him back as Iron Man. People would have shat on you for it. People would have been pissed about it. People would have said, "Oh, his death has no meaning." But you know what? Once they would have seen him in the movie suiting up as Iron Man, that would have all gone away. I would have been more forgiving of them bringing Tony Stark back than casting Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. I got to be honest, and I love Robert Downey Jr. I think he's a fantastic actor. I think he's done a lot for the MCU. I am so disappointed by this casting. I think this is such a horrible. And here's a bad thing. Here's a sad thing. Not only is this a horrible move, not only is it a desperate move, it is a move that would normally backfire horrendously. And you know what's sad? It's not really going to backfire. It's initially going to work out. You know why? Because people are just too dumb. They don't care. Like, nobody cares. Everybody, I mean, I saw those people I was watching the highlights from Comic-Con, and I saw all these people cheering when he popped out, and I thought to myself, what a bunch of marks. What a bunch of marks. This is Tony Stark. This is Iron Man. He's being turned into a villain, one of the best villains in modern Marvel comics. Because back in the day, Doctor Doom was just the villain for the Fantastic Four. Modern, like 2000 plus, Doctor Doom is epic. So now you want me to pay you to try to convince me that looking on that screen when I see Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom, I'm supposed to be cool with that? This man has been Iron Man for 10 plus years. He is the face of your franchise. He is the foundation of the MCU. And now you just want me to forget that and accept him as one of the biggest villains in recent MCU history? And I'm supposed to be cool with that? I'm supposed to want to pay you to make such a lazy move? You want me to spend my hard-earned money in this economy to watch your movie that you had no creativity enough to go out there and get a good actor that could play this role. You have no creativity to move on. The reason Marvel has been failing since Endgame, with the exception of Spider-Man and to some extent Deadpool and Wolverine, because we'll get into that later, is because you had characters like, obviously, Iron Man. You had characters like Captain America. These are characters with heart. You had, even Black Widow was, to me, a major piece in the Avengers. These characters had heart. These characters were built. These characters are the core Avengers. If you go through the Avengers comics, the core, but the top two were always Cap and Iron Man. Now, you killed off Iron Man, which I still think to this day that was a good decision. And you sent Captain America to the past to live his life. Character-wise, that was a good decision. So what people have been looking for ever since that all ended were their replacements. You can't replace those two. But you can still find characters for people to get behind. The problem is that Marvel went a completely different direction with all these, and I'm sorry to say this, you want to call me sexist? I really don't give a shit anymore. They went with too many heavy female characters. No audience member is going to get behind Captain Marvel to lead the Avengers. No audience member is going to get behind the new Black Panther to lead the Avengers. And now, to be fair, that's not their fault, but they could have recasted him. They could have wrote a very good narrative and brought in Michael B. Jordan to be the new Black Panther, and that would have been a major fucking win, but they failed. All right. I like Paul Rudd. No one's going to get behind Ant-Man. Okay, no one's gonna get behind the Wasp. No one's gonna get behind any of the Eternals. There are characters that, if they knew how to write and if they knew what they were doing, they could have had opportunities to establish characters that could have led the way. All right, I would pitch Spider-Man as a young leader for the Avengers, but unfortunately that's unreliable because he's owned by Sony. Okay, you can make an argument for Thor, but they turn him into a dumb shit. You go from Thor Ragnarok to Thor Love and Thunder, and Thor loses all credibility as a potential leader. Yes, I like some of his comedy angles, but I also like serious Thor. And Chris Hemsworth was hot for a while there. They dropped the ball on maybe allowing Thor to lead the Avengers. All right. Had you recast Michael B. Jordan, or maybe even somebody else as T'Challa, Black Panther would have been a great decision. Again, you have to have good writing, but they had characters there that they could have passed the torch to, but they wanted to do Captain Marvel. They wanted to do Miss Marvel. They wanted to do fucking all these other, I'm sorry to say, all these other female characters that nobody cares about. You know why? Because look, I know there are females out there who love comics. 90% of your fan base are men. 90% of your fan base are men. And you know what? If you knew how to write, if you didn't force the issue, yes, there may have been a female character there that some people could have gotten behind. But you failed on all of them. Your best, if you wanted a female to lead the Avengers, honestly, your best chance would have been the Scarlet Witch, but you turned her into a villain. Doctor Strange, if given a good solid movie on the echelons of like the last Spider-Man movie, something where you really, really care about Doctor Strange, he could have led the Avengers. But his movie was more Scarlet Witch centered than it was about Doctor Strange. This is an example of bad writing. This is an example of Kevin Feige going from meticulous planning without any agendas to forcing the issue of trying to push more women forward. And Guy, you of all people know your audience is completely male. Okay? Your female audience consists of like 8 to 10%. 90% of your audience is male. And then if you're gonna have a female lead, you can't write them like you wrote Captain Marvel. You can't write them like you write She-Hulk. No one's gonna get behind that shit. So now, in the act of desperation, you go back to the well. Now you're putting your back against the wall because you know this budget's gonna be through the fucking roof. There's no way. I'll tell you right now, Robert Downey Jr. was in the driver's seat for those negotiations. There's no fucking way he did not fleece them for a fuck ton of money. And they're still gonna have to pay the other actors that are gonna be in the Avengers. So your budget's gonna be like $400-500 million. You're gonna crack $1 billion, but really, how much of a profit's that gonna be? Even if you crack $1 billion, it's gonna look good on paper, but you're not gonna make that much profit. You're certainly not gonna make $2 billion. This movie's not gonna do $2 billion. I guarantee you that right now. It's not gonna do $2 billion. No way. It'll do over $1 billion. But I gotta tell you right now, I think this is a shit move. I think this is a worse tarnish on the character than actually just bringing him back as Iron Man. Because in some people's eyes, especially in general audiences and young kids who you know they're always aiming at the young kids, you're essentially turning their hero into a villain. Especially if they make him a variant. So Marvel's desperate. I sat there and I laughed when I heard all those people cheer, because all I kept saying to myself were, you dumb desperate marks, you dumb shits. And I get it. And then I was watching other channels that were talking about this, you know, the bigger channels that made their living off the MCU, so you know they're desperate for the MCU to make a comeback. And they're praising this, and I'm like, okay, I get it. You need to make a living. Marvel's had a big drought, so it's affecting your bottom line. So of course you're going to be overly excited about this because now it's going to bring in views. I know how it goes. This to me is, fuck that. This is a shit move. This is a shit move. There's two kinds of people who are excited about this. mainstream YouTubers who have made a killing on Marvel stuff for the past 15 years, because now they're going to see some revenue return, and blind Marvel fans who will eat any shit that they fucking squat for. I was like, wow. And of course, those are the people who go to these conventions. Because if I went there and I saw this, I'd be like, what the fuck is this? Why is it? Can anyone here tell me, when you think of Doctor Doom and someone who's playing that role, when you look at Robert Downey Jr., who, by the way, is a very good actor, and I'm sure he'll probably even put a good performance because he's just a good actor. It doesn't matter what kind of performance he does. Can anyone here say 100% that when they see Robert Downey Jr., they think to themselves, that's a great pick for Doctor Doom? Because I don't. And like I said, I think he's a good actor. But this is Tony Stark. Like, what the fuck were you thinking? There are so many other characters, so many other actors who could have played Doctor Doom. And for them to bring back Robert Downey Jr. just so they can get a pop. This is what they call in wrestling a cheap pop. So that's my monologue. I needed to get that off my chest because you know what it is? When I saw Deadpool and Wolverine, I was a little encouraged. I said, okay, maybe they're going to right the ship. And I think in the short term, it's going to look that way. But I think long term, this is going to have diminishing returns.